what we're going to do is offer a way, a framework to begin thinking and evaluating, and then I'm going to try it out on one popular technique, prayer, and see how it works, thinking about prayer in 3 worldviews. But with that, let's look at the worldviews that have influenced nursing and healthcare. It's not just nursing today. And with that, we'll start with what really is a modern worldview or Western dualism, in which God, if he exists at all, and by the way, since we've written a theology of nursing, we start with God. And for those of you in graduate school or undergraduate school in nursing, most nursing theories do not start with God. We talk about what's a person, what's the environment, what is health, and what does it mean to care. But we start with God because this is a theology. And in this worldview, God is, he may be there, may or may not be, but it frankly makes little difference. He's transcendent if he's there at all. He's so high and far removed that it has no practical bearing on our daily life. Aristotle referred to God in this sense as the unmoved mover. Descartes, who is in a great measure responsible for the shaping of our modern worldview, along with others, he just articulated where people were already moving, said a supreme God, eternal, infinite, immutable, omniscient, and creator of all things. But here's this far distant God. Let's have new paradigm. In what is now what we call new paradigm, because that's the terminology that's used in the nursing literature. Nurses who are unhappy with this and know that this modern worldview just doesn't quite cut it. In caring for people, there's more to be said. Many of them are moving to a new paradigm. And in this worldview, God, if you want to call him that, or it, or whatever, is immanent. It's everything. There's no distant high God. God is everything. And impersonal. God is not a relational being. Many times referred to as energy. The words we read often come from Eastern metaphysics, ki, or prana, or life force. Life force actually comes out of the theosophy, which I think Donald Okuna Omathuna, sorry, will probably mention some of that when he talks about the ethics of energy therapies. In this paradigm, God is one with the person and the environment. God is everything. Sometimes given titles, sometimes, and this, of course, it's not coherent theory, but sometimes God is referred to as goddesses. There may be beings identified. Now, this is a shift. It's not a coherent worldview. It's Jim Sire, who writes about worldviews, calls this one an adolescent worldview. So there's a lot of rough edges, a lot of pieces that are not put together. Or self, if everything's God, I'm God, God's in here. Or light within, a whole variety of names. When we look at the prayer, looking at analyzing prayer, you'll see that sometimes referred to as the universal conscious or unconsciousness or various titles. But this God can be manipulated and controlled. If we get the right techniques, we can control this God. Most of those techniques are mental techniques. Think right, learn the right kind of mental technology, you can control this God. or ritual, a lot of focus written about, focus on rituals of various sorts. Doesn't matter what kind of ritual, but rituals themselves can control this God. This view, God is syncretic and very pragmatic. Do it if it works. The philosophical title for this is pantheism or panentheism. Now, let's look at a biblical view of God. Now, it's hard to draw pictures. Diagrams never say enough, and you can't say too much. But this is one way. And because Judy's so great with the computer, she designs these wonderful diagrams that tell part of the story. And in this one, we have a God who is both transcendent. He's way up there, but he's also immanent. He's present. He spoke creation into existence. He speaks by the word of his mouth. He sustains it. This God is a triune God. This God is personal. This God relates. This God redeems us. This God sanctifies us, purifies our lives, helps us to become more like him. This God is the sovereign Lord of all creation, but he's also immanent and transcendent. And in this worldview, God creates all different kinds of wonderful things. Instead of the last one, which things are sort of a mush, it's all like one of the phrases that's commonly heard in the New Paradigm worldview is people are congealed energy. And in this one, well, there are distinctions. There are people and things and trees, and there's even little spirits up there floating around. There are all sides. There's a seen world. There's an unseen world. In this world, lots of things are there. But God is the one who holds them together. And when it's working right, and Judy's going to talk about that in our definition of health, then we have shalom. So we start with God when we look at this. Now we'll go back and look at, just briefly at the environment in each of these and person, and then we'll go to our example. In the modern worldview, or the Western dualistic worldview, the environment is simply physical matter. Matter is all there is and all there ever was. Carl Sagan, who died last year, was the very charming and nice proponent of this. I like listening to Carl Sagan. I like reading him. He writes well, but he advocated this. This is all. Now, of course, that's an ancient idea. Some of the ancient Greeks believed that matter was eternal, existed always. And in our modern scientific worldview, the worldview of technocure and so on, since Bacon, this physical world is dominated and controlled by instrumental reason. We can control it, we can manipulate it, we can use it. And this world operates by cause and effect. It's a world that can be engineered. It's objective. It's out there to be discovered. We don't create the world in our mind. It's there, and this is what science has done. The world's out here, and good science, the approach is we'll discover what is really there. And it's the only reality that can be really known. Now, modernists might not want to deny that there's another spiritual dimension, but like Kant, we can't really know it. So the only thing we can really know is this physical. In the new paradigm, we've done a flip. Now, when you do simple overviews like this, we're not subtle. You have to make broad stroke generalizations. But in this worldview, it isn't matter that it exists, it's all spiritual. And it's this spiritual energy, and there are no distinctions, only graded intensities between living and non-living things. And that last part, paraphrasing a nurse educator who was writing about the environment. Earth, Gaia, the Gaia hypothesis, is a living, conscious organism. Now, again, I'm telling you some, these are not logically all coherent. It's a mix of ideas, but some people who work in this worldview talk about the whole Earth, the whole universe, everything, the cells in my body are conscious, they have awareness, a kind of conscious awareness. In this one, knowledge is not objective to be gained, it's subjective. It's personal and based on perception. And in this one, again, it's this idea of harmony and merging, and at the same time, the idea of manipulation of this energy. Now, biblical theism, I've already spoken to that a bit. We have all sorts of wonderful things in God's creation. And I agree very much with Patricia Benner, who spoke in our earlier session. We need to talk more about how wonderful creation was and is. It is wonderful. And it's so wonderful that God in his mercy, even though we fell and rebelled, we did not, he didn't allow all the traces of that wonder to be wiped out. So it's still there. But it is polluted by sin, and it is subject to fertility and all the things we heard last night about death. Disease is the foreshadowing of death. It came because of sin. In this worldview, the environment is distinct from God, but, and this is very important, dependent upon him and under his control. And in this one, knowledge of the environment comes through experience. We do learn things by our experience of in everyday life, common sense understanding, and even including science. But also, that's always checked by, especially when we're talking about the nature of human beings, checked by, and we check that against biblical revelation. There's a check to see if we're on the right track. Humans are responsible to manage and care for the seen natural environment. Another piece of this environment is that there's a whole unseen dimension of the environment where God is there, of course. God's all around. In that environment are angels. There are other evil beings in that environment. The Bible's very shielded and doesn't tell us a lot. I think that's with intention. I don't think we're meant to know a lot about that. But just enough to know that we don't worship angels, and we don't try to get our own guardian angel. And also, we don't try to manipulate or have interaction or interchange with any kind of spiritual beings except through God, through Jesus Christ. And that we are invited, we are implored to relate to God through Christ. Now, what's a person? In the modernist environment, a person, we talk often about this mind-body dualism, a thing that thinks, the body's a machine, whatever. In the new paradigm, well, what's a person? I taught once in a curriculum where I had to say that a person is an energy field. And there's no ontological distinction. There's no real substantive distinction between a person and a table or a carrot or a horse. Now, that's usually not said, but when you think about it, if everything's all the same stuff and there are no distinctions in the way they were created, there's no substantive distinction. We are all in this sort of state of personal interpenetration. The body in this one is illusionary, and I think that much of the writing today especially in nursing. I don't know what's happening in medicine, but in nursing, so much of the writing speaks of the mind and the spirit and the psychosocial that sometimes you feel like the body's sort of shuttled off here to the side. It may even be considered a kind of trap, like the poor people who decided to leave these traps behind a few months ago and go off to the interplanetary travel. Well, what's the person in the biblical worldview? We're created in God's own image. We are physically and psychosocially and spiritually integrated beings. We were meant to live in obedience to God, in loving relationship with Him, and in relationship to one another. We do have to deal with this reality of human sin and rebellion that has damaged not just a relationship with God, but with each other. Well, so what I did, instead of taking therapeutic touch, which is one of the big ones that nurses are involved with, and you'll hear about that later in another talk, I decided to take another one that Christians are generally very comfortable with, i.e. prayer. Big stuff today. Lots of articles written about prayer, articles in the Reader's Digest, articles showing that, quote, prayer works. And I thought, well, let's take this framework and analyze prayer. Let's see how it might look in each of these three worldviews. So, I started with the modernism, and in this one, this is the world of science, this is the world of clinics and hospitals and sterile environments and hard science and technocure, that world. In this view, prayer's fine, pragmatic. Use it if it works. Of course, well, I mean, it's your business. It may be a source of psychological comfort and strength, i.e. a coping mechanism. And we now know that it may well be associated with the psychoneuroimmune or the psychoneuroendocrine response in some people. I say associated with, correlated with, there's no direct cause and effect for any kind of mental mental state and the release of endorphins, but we can talk statistically about that. Maybe. Its use or non-use is dictated by patients' rights and personal autonomy. If patients want it, sure, make provision for that. People have rights to do what they want to do. However, in most clinical settings, it should not disrupt the clinical setting. We don't want any loud prayer meetings in the clinical setting, please. But we might send people off to the chapel, for example. And it may be useful so long as it doesn't take the place of medical treatment. We certainly don't want people substituting this instead of medical treatment. And in a managed care, well, it's effective, it's cost effective, doesn't take any big equipment. And it's low tech, and depending on who does it and how you do it, maybe even high touch. Now, oftentimes in this framework, in this mindset, clergy and chaplains are assigned to this aspect of care. That's their job. That's what they're supposed to do. Now, the research that's being done on prayer in this worldview is both quantitative and qualitative. And what's usually attempted are to show correlations between practices, certain practices like prayer, church attendance, and so on, and identified physical, psychological, and social benefits. Well, what does prayer look like in a new paradigm? And I went to the current authority on this, Dr. Larry Dawsey, to check out that I'm saying it right. So I'm using his language. In this one, again, it's pragmatic. If it works, you use it. It's rooted in the unconscious or the absolute. That's what he would call all this sort of vague mush of stuff that we had up here, the unconscious. And this whatever it is links. He doesn't particularly call it energy, but he sometimes does. This one links all of us. We're all linked at this level, and all things are linked at this level. Everything that exists. Now, how we activate things happening in this network. Prayer is one of the ways. We can do that either consciously or unconsciously. And what this does is provide a bridge. This unconscious bridge provides a bridge between my consciousness and your consciousness, and between persons. Now, it may even happen at a subconscious level. And the effects of this are non-local. It means that, and he makes a very clear distinction between the modern worldview of prayer and this new paradigm. And that in the modern worldview, the effects, if I would pray, the effects would be within my own body, or if I'm with you in your presence, or if you knew that I was praying for you, that may well trigger this response. So that you would have hope because someone's praying. But essentially, the effects are local. But in this worldview, the effects can be non-local and unknown. They can be past, present, and future because you see all things are linked. And it's not limited to the presence of the person who prays, and it's not limited to what goes on within my own body. Some of these, there may be similarities in this, 1 to 4, there may be some similarities in this. It's pragmatic use, and again, it's low cost, it's low tech, okay, and if it works, wonderful. It's more open to rearranging clinical space. People who are really into this may make space for ceremonies and rituals and so on. More openness to discontinuing medical treatment, maybe. Not quite so. Maybe I should have made that a little softer. More open to discontinuing high-tech care. Anybody can do this. Professionals, lay healers, alternative healers, and so on. Research, again, is essentially the same. Now, what does prayer look like in a biblical theism? Well, the whole premise is entirely different. We don't talk about prayer works like it's a nickel we can put in God's slot machine to get out whatever we want. In this one, we're talking, remember we talked about relationships. In this one, we are coming before Creator God, who's high and holy and immanent. And we come in relationship, and because we're dependent, remember we said we're creatures, we're dependent. We come in a dependent and obedient relationship before Him with a desire for His will and His honor. This is not trying to trigger a direct cause and effect relationship. It's to trigger a cause, to implement a cause that will get an effect that we want. It's entirely different. It's based on God's grace in Christ's work of redemption. It's personal and communal, meaning that we do it together. Also, relationship with the God of the Bible. And these days, we must be very clear when we speak of God, we have to say, which God? There are lots of gods. In this one, it grows out of faith in and obedience to God who invites us to pray. It depends on God's Spirit to intercede according to God's will. Who of us knows what to ask for? God, in His mercy, takes our brokenness and our words and our fumbling about and lifts them up and takes them into, makes of them something according to his will, that he knows really, if we knew and could know, is what we would ask for. It trusts in God's love and wisdom to meet our deepest needs. Its effects may be local or non-local. They may be within or without, seen or unseen. We do believe in an unseen world, and who knows what prayer does in that world. We are open to not always pushing technology to the limit. We may say it's time to stop. Depends on good science, on biblical ethics, on what persons want, and what we see as our professional responsibility. Anybody, anyone can approach God in this way. It's this way that we come to God. Research, God's response cannot be controlled in cause and effect studies. Correlations between prayer and identified results may describe what generally is true for those who love and obey God, but in no way can they be construed as making God a means to our end. Well, that's one way to take these. There are many other worldviews or many other practices that we are being faced with. Subject each of them to this kind of thinking and analysis in this worldview framework and see if this is something you can do as a Christian.